Hello and welcome to the Choralosophy Podcast. This is episode 48, the Choral Marathon with Dr. Emily Williams Burch. Emmy Burch is a friend of the show and is coming back on the podcast to talk about the ways in which our careers as educators and as the learning process for our students is not a sprint, but a marathon. She was in Kansas City doing a marathon, and I invited her to stay at our house so she could hang out. And of course, while we were here, we couldn't resist doing a podcast together, us being two choral podcast nerds. And so while we were together, we went ahead and made this off the cuff, but really quite, I think, helpful and insightful episode where she took her idea of this choral music metaphor as being like a marathon, and we just kind of ran with it. And we talk about all the ways in which it's okay for us to be struggling with where we are right now. It's okay for us to not be able to hit the number of miles in our target or the number of musicianship points that we'd like to score for ourselves. It's okay for our students to not quite be where they need to be in terms of their overall growth as musicians. It's all okay as long as you have the mindset that this is a marathon. It's over the course of your life. You are working towards becoming better, and that's really all that matters. And so stick around, and we're going to talk a little bit more with Emmy in a minute when she comes on about some of the ways that this manifests itself in our lives and in our students' lives and learning processes. Before we get there, just wanted to give a shout out to the supporters over at Patreon, patreon.com/choralosophy. Is an invaluable group of supporters that are doing really the grunt work of financially supporting this show, which is an awesome thing. And for as little as $3 a month, people can log in over there and they can have basically an access to a private social media type setting, but for just this show. And the 60 members of the Patreon community over there can get an episode in their podcast app that's a private episode every month. They also get access to any creative lesson plans I might just happen to come up with, and that's the place that I dump them. By the way, I just kind of put them there whenever I come up with something I think is kind of neat, as well as behind the scenes conversations about the show. So head over to patreon.com/choralosophy and join for as little as $3 a month. The show is produced at Patreon by Ulrika Igrain Munoz Alarcon, David Kowalczyk, James Mock, Kyle Peterson, Michael Herron, and Ryan Main, as well as Steve and Kathy Kakajic. And of course, I can't forget to remind you to get signed up at Choralosophy Con 2021. That's the Atlanta convention, April 9 through 11. I know there's lots up in the air with related to travel and all of those things. So we've tried to put together a very small and controllable environment down there in Atlanta, where Southwest, for example, you can cancel your flight for free. The hotel has said that if we have COVID things pop up that cause us to have to cancel, we can cancel for free. So we're trying to make this a pretty low risk proposition, but ultimately we all know that we need to be together and we need to be developing with each other as professionals. And that's what we're going to try to do in Atlanta. So head to choralosophy.com. That's the website for the show. And then that's choralosophy.com/choralosophy-con to sign up for that convention. Or of course, you can go on the Choralosophers Facebook group and find any information that you need about that. And of course, head on over to sightreadingfactory.com to get signed up for you and yourself for your year's memberships for Sight Reading Factory so that you can send out those assignments that you need to send out to all of your singers of any age level, by the way. The young ones and the hoity-toity collegiate kids need sightreadingfactory.com for their skills to be refreshed frequently, especially in this hybrid and online environment. mymusicfolders.com is a valuable resource. You need choir folders. You need the resonant singer's mask. You need choir robes. Really, any choir gear that you could imagine, you could head over to mymusicfolders.com. At both of those websites, Sight Reading Factory and My Music Folders, you can enter Choralosophy at checkout to get a discount coupon code that is usable every time you shop there at those websites. Okay, let's head on over to the conversation with Emmy Burch and I on the Choral Music Marathon, which I was super excited to get to have right here in the studio. A quick technical note here. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, you will see a blank screen during this interview, which I am I'm bigly bummed out about because I had a 2-camera setup for the very first time in my studio to try to film this episode, and I only had one camera that worked. And unless you wanted to watch simply me talking the whole time and not get to see Emmy, I went ahead and decided to delete both video feeds. Sorry, we'll get video feeds up next time. If you're listening on the podcast app, just ignore this. Okay, so I am in the studio with Emmy Burch.
Yes, it's so nice to be here.
This is going to be fun. And of course, Emmy is in Kansas City and staying at our place tonight because you ran a marathon this morning.
Sure
which
did.
is so foreign to me.
Okay, well, let's just start with the fact that your going to the gym is very foreign to me. So maybe we should just go ahead and say that different strokes for different folks there. I could not imagine who wants to get up in the morning and go to a gym.
Me.
Why?
Because they have heavy things there.
Yeah, so like picking up heavy things doesn't like get me excited to get out of bed and go to the gym. Like if I do pick up some heavy things because it's good to be a strong runner, but I pick up heavy things to make me a better runner.
Okay.
Once or twice a week in the comfort of my own home without other people like, whoa.
That's funny. So do you ever do the ankle weights thing that some runners do?
No, no.
Because I feel like that could have been some common ground that we could have found.
Do you wear ankle weights?
Well, no, but I have other heavy things. Ground? No, so it'd be like heavy things, but while running.
Okay.
But you don't.
No, just run.
Because that seems to me like that would make you a better runner.
Yeah, except it's actually just putting more weight on your bones.
Yeah.
And you just want your muscles to be stronger to support the movement.
Okay.
And fire correctly. Like
right.
You want the certain muscles to fire. But yes, I am here for a marathon. Every other marathon all year has been canceled, and I should have known when we did our other episode that this was going to be where the marathon that I got asked to pace would be, because you said something along the lines of, well, our area is so spread out, there's not that many cases, or you said something about the landmass.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what happened. This little tiny middle of Overland, Kansas?
Overland Park.
Yep. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's where it was. There was maybe 50 people running, and it was so spread out, very socially distant, masks at the start, and if I had to talk to my group, I had to put my mask on or anything.
Right.
But I was here to pace the 4-hour marathon with a good friend of mine who's a pacer extraordinaire. And people naturally space out when running.
Right.
You don't want to bump or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's not a contact sport, or
Right.
should be. Thank the Lord.
Now, you had mentioned, so we were talking about like, okay, so let's go upstairs and do a podcast, and that would be fun. I'm super excited to just have you just here and get a chance to hang out with you in person. And you had made this comment that in a lot of ways choir is like a marathon, which of course, since that's so foreign to me, I wouldn't run voluntarily. So explain to me what you mean. So where's your connection there?
Okay, this is a great connection.
Okay.
And if you don't run marathons, that is okay. Just think of any large, epic goal that you have. You don't just jump and go do the goal. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be all that wonderful. So to be a great marathoner, you have a training plan. The connection between marathons and choir world are very similar. And if you don't marathon, it's fine. Just think of a really big goal that seems too big to do right now. You have to figure out how you're going to get from where you are currently to that goal. So for marathoning, that starts by picking a training plan. And each training plan you pick is different, and it can be catered to where you are in your physical journey, where you are in your musical journey, where your students are in their musical journey.
Right.
And along the way of the training plan, yes, it's prescribed, but you have to take little pivots. Like when you have like something that's bothering you, like an Achilles issue or a knee issue or a hip issue, because life happens, you adjust that plan so you can still meet your goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so much like choir, because you know what you want that piece to be. And when you first open it up, it seems just too big to take. Or how are we going to get there? How am I going to teach it? How are my students going to sing it? But you create a plan, ultimately.
Right. So, all right. So I get the connection. I think that the way I think of it is that when I put, so to take the marathon specifically as the metaphor, putting maybe an extra hard piece in front of a choir, for example, one that they, when they first look at it, there's just no way in their imagination, especially when you're talking about young singers that have not gone through this process before, they can't imagine. They look at me like, we can't do this.
Right.
Like, this is not something that I can't, like, they see all the notes and there's like maybe more pages than they're used to. Like, this is so,
There's 11 pages in this octavo.
Right. We can't do this. And I just kind of nods, knowingly, like, yeah, we're just gonna have to work really hard. And then you gradually piece away at it over time. And then of course they start, and I think that's one of the things I love about teaching is that I know before they do that they will be successful. They haven't yet figured out, but of course I can't spoil it. No. I can't tell them, I know we're gonna get it because I want them to struggle. Like, right. I want them to go through that process. But then once we look back at it, we're at the concert and the concert's over and they look back at it, and I then have to remind them that they once thought they couldn't do that.
The same is so true at the start of a marathon. So you have the training plan to get them there. And a marathon is not unlike preparing for a concert or a festival or a big gig, whatever it is. Because you show up at the start line, these people in the group don't know us from Adam. And they're entrusting us with all of their training to get them to that finish line and what they think is their goal time. Some of them stretching more so than others. But as you're going through that marathon, they are questioning, did they do enough training? Can I make it up this hill? What happens? Oh my goodness, my quads are hurting. We're going downhill. And there's all these little pivots that are happening, just like when you're in a concert and, the kid does something crazy or something happens in the audience. You're having to constantly be there and pivot. And then all of a sudden you get to that point where everyone realizes they're going to make it.
Right.
And it's still hard. We had a guy who did a 52-minute PR, and it was his first time ever finishing a marathon running the whole time, because we don't stop when we're running. And we get to the point where I think we had 3 miles left, and anybody can run a 5K. You've got this. That's just you wouldn't even get out of bed for a 5K right now, trying to cheer him on. And he was hurting. And you see him dig in, and then we hit mile 26, and we told him to just go, because you want him to get in way under the time, and we have to get in at the time that we were asked to pace. So he starts running ahead, and he crosses the finish line, and he's so proud of himself. And then his wife comes, you guys were the best pacers. You had no idea the wife had been watching at different points along the way. It's kind of like when a parent comes up, I just loved that song, that one really hard song. There's just so many points, but I can't tell you how many times today someone would ask a question. How do you eat when you run? What do you do when you feel like this? What do you do when and like all of our students, I can't sing that.
Right.
How do I sing that high note? It's such a similar thing. And at the end, the euphoric feeling of a great concert. Yeah, there were things we did wrong in the marathon. Yeah, there were moments that I did not feel my strongest. But it's an experience, and it's little flashbulb memories that I won't forget of Overland Park, Kansas.
Right. Yes, beautiful, sprawling Overland Park, Kansas. Yeah, it's true, and it's one of those things where we, as the trainer, in your case, you're kind of like you're the teacher in that as that pacer of the marathon, and these other people maybe aren't as experienced as you are with running. And as the teacher in a choir room, we are the pacer.
You are definitely the pacer.
And you kind of are always out ahead of the singers just a little bit, but also helping them understand what's accessible and what's not, what's realistic and what's not. That kind of thing. I can think of tons of metaphors for even just the vocal health of a singer.
Oh yes.
Like how much rehearsal in the day is appropriate. How much. How many high G's can I give my high school age tenors in one song?
Right.
Just because they can sing one doesn't mean they can sing 19.
Exactly.
That type of thing, and you have to kind of understand. You have to be the one who kind of polices that pace, so to speak. But at the same time, sometimes the singers, sometimes the students also can kind of develop their own sense of that pace over time.
Right.
And so I like how this is kind of like a metaphor.
It really
meta metaphor.
Yes.
Because you have like some situations where we as the teacher are helping them understand and learn one song, but then they're also, in the process of that, they're also learning a little bit on their own about how to learn the next song without us, which is something I say to my singers all the time. I use the term copy-paste. It's like so this thing that we're learning how to do, remember that, because you're going to copy paste that same thing on another thing. And that's in a lot of ways, that's if we think of each piece that we're teaching them as a marathon, that's fine. But we're also trying to think of building the whole musician over the course of their lifetime.
Ideally, you don't want them just to run this one marathon.
Right.
Like for me, it's such a way to reset every day when I run. That's my creativity time. It's my thought time. Being a marathoner is how I have an identity outside of choir.
Right.
So you want these runners in your pace group to run multiple marathons. But there's two other really cool things that happened today that made me think this would be something we could talk about. So we were mile 20-ish, and one of the young runners in our group, she was aiming for a sub 4. She had just tried 3 weeks ago and failed. And so she shares this around mile 18 or 19, and she's looking very strong. So she starts to pick up the pace a little bit, and I go with her. Like, I went faster than I was supposed to, just to kind of get up and let her have some freedom to talk. And she just opened up. Hey, I think I feel strong enough to go faster. When do you think I should break away? What should I do? What should my goal be? So we were able to talk for a few minutes of, okay, so go. At mile such and such, you go. Pick it up 10 to 15 seconds. You don't want to blow out your legs and just sprint and then die. And you'll be able to get in this time frame. She was right in the middle of that time frame. And to see her pulling off, it's so much like when we see our students learning something on their own or applying on their own at the same time. There was a couple of people in our group that didn't want the help. And when they fall back, I call it mother henning. I run back behind and I kind of get with them. And I'm like, hey, hang on to my shoulder. I'll get you back with the group. This person wanted nothing to do with it. So I scoot back and I'm like, hey, how are you feeling? Do you need any food, water? Let's get back up with the group. And he just peels off away from me. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that too. And so we get back up with the group. And in the last, point 2, he sprints around and goes off. Because there will always be those people that you can't help. Right. But you don't know what we said or did or lived as an example today. Because he hung back there for 25.8 miles. And then he peeled off. Yeah. So you don't know what lasting impact that will have on his life as a marathoner. Right. And so I think in this time when we don't, like, for example, I don't see my singers face to face. It's a great, relationship to say, okay, they might not be showing me what I want them to show me in that rehearsal with their face or their engagement, but you don't know what experience that you're giving them in that virtual setting or in that song that will matter later. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think choir is a lot like a marathon. Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. And I did, of course, running voluntarily is not something that I would choose to do. I mean, if a bear is heavy things voluntarily, not
if a bear was chasing me in the woods, I would probably engage in running. But that would be my chosen activity only in that case. I can understand. In fact, I'm glad that you thought of that, because on my show, the very first episode I did was to tell a story about how about exercise relating to my own personal journey, and that was actually even though this is a show about choir, it only sometimes is a show about choir. Mm-hmm. But that first episode was talking about for me the idea that I had for most of my life been varying from morbidly obese to just fluffy, somewhere in between. And so the idea of trying to exercise and starting an exercise program and then not seeing the results that I wanted to and then quitting was probably like a 15-year cycle. It was just constantly, I would try it with the best intentions and then I would give up. And mostly because I hadn't yet figured out the mindset of a marathon as a long-term goal. Like, this is not something that I'm gonna look like an Adonis next year. This is like something that you gradually just get healthier. And I didn't become successful at becoming a regular exerciser until I finally changed what my goal was. Mm-hmm. And my goal was to just be healthier, to stay alive longer, to just go, like to have success be that I'm just going to go. Mm-hmm. And if I can keep up that regular routine, then I'll be healthier and I'll be happier. And so that was kind of the topic of that episode. And I see a lot of parallels even just to the concept of learning to run a marathon, because you can't just you can't do it the first time. You work your
No
way
one
up to
has
it.
a good first marathon except maybe like Molly Slidell, who did her first marathon and qualified for the Olympics, like whatever.
The freaks.
The total crazy
Right.
running epics out there. We were telling stories on all of our crazy things we did at our first marathon to help some of the people in our group who are first time marathoners know it's okay if you don't hit that goal pace this time.
Well, but even for people who have never, so yes, of course, running your first marathon, it's not going to be great. But even for a person who's a normal person like me, to even get to the point where you could run 26 miles without dying.
Don't forget the point two. Like, that's valid.
Okay, so that 0.2 miles is probably the worst part. I'm just guessing. But yeah, so like for right now, for even me as a non-runner to get to the point where I could even attempt a marathon would also be a marathon. It would be a gradual process of, well, right now I could probably go out and run 5 miles and not die. And so then, at what point do I try for 7? And that kind of thing. It's a and this kind of goes back to what you said at the very beginning. Is like for everyone, no matter where you are on your journey, the process is still the same. Which is that as long as I just go, as long as I'm going to go a little bit further than I could last time. I'm going to do it maybe with my whatever it is with my training routine. I'm going to bite off a slightly larger chunk than I could chew last time.
Yes.
That kind of a thing, and not putting yourself up to compare yourself to where someone else is. And I think you're right that the way we approach our choral music profession, I think not only with just the metaphor of how we teach our kids, but it's how we approach our own careers, how we think of our own skills, related to. In fact, this is something I'd love to see what your experience has been of just things that I can do now as a musician in front of a choir that I couldn't do when I was 24,
One of
23,
my
whatever.
favorite phrases, I think the quote is attributed to Rachel Hollis, but she says, "Don't compare yourself to anyone else's beginning or end." And I think that that's such an important thing right now. When we talked last, we were kind of all at that sprinting to the start, unsure of what was going to happen. We had all of our bags packed, ready to just go out the gate hot, not knowing what was going to come. And eventually we all settled into our pace and we're all pivoting and going different directions. And it's the most epic foot race ever right now because there's no path to be followed. And it's all wonderful because everyone's own little path is beautiful and has different experiences. But I think looking at even just where we are now versus at the beginning of this year, don't compare yourself to where you were then.
Right.
And don't compare yourself to where you think your end is. You can be as small as that little chunk or as big as, okay, I am here in my career. This is not a sprint. I'm here for the long haul. What do I need to work on to make myself a better teacher, a better musician, better marathoner?
Right.
What are my imbalances? That's why I pick up heavy things, because my coach tells me I have imbalances. One side is better than the other.
Right.
But it's the truth. You have to be constantly reevaluating yourself. So I think, it's fun to look back and say, oh, I didn't used to be able to do that. Like when you teach me how to make really great videos, I'm going to one day look back and say, I didn't know how to do that. So I can one day have a YouTube channel.
Or what you could discover when I show Emmy how to use iMovie is it also could be one of those mental blocks that we put on ourselves where we realize that it's actually easier than we thought.
Yes. When you come up to something, you're like, oh, I can never do that.
Right.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Like you have to be realistic the way I think of it in the sense that are there some things that are outside of a person's abilities? Yes. Not everyone can do everything. That's okay. But what percentage of those things are things that we're truly not able to do or things that we've simply told ourselves we're not able to do?
So
and that goes to everything.
I was going to say, do you think that is truth for why some people are, like your last episode I just listened to, there were so many innovative ideas in there. But if you're telling yourself, oh, I'm not a techie, I don't know how to do that, you've already put up the roadblock. You already aren't going to run past, you're not going to make it past mile 5 with Chris.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's true of ourselves in rehearsals leading choirs. It's true of, we've mentioned that you're a runner, I'm a lifter. When it's true of me in the gym with heavy things. There was one time I can remember, it was about a year ago, where I well, actually, let's see which story I want to tell. There's so many. Okay, I will tell pull-up story. So pull-ups.
I can do those, by the way.
See,
I can do 3.
Okay.
I feel like that's a claim to fame.
That's great. That's nothing for me now.
I realize that, but I'm just really proud of it.
But you should be proud of that. And so for my entire life, as like I said, just all the way from fluffy to morbidly obese, and that was my fluctuation my whole life. And as a kid, I got really big really fast, and I was a really chubby kid. And so one of my big sources of PE class shame as a kid was that I could not do a pull-up, not one single pull-up ever. And I also have a decently functioning brain, and I sometimes with like fixed mindset problems, like where you tell yourself you can't do a thing. I'm going to blank on her name, but the lady that coined the term fixed mindset and wrote the book called Fixed Mindset, she's a psychologist, I can't remember her name now. But one of the things she says in that book is that smart people are oftentimes the worst at that. Real quick, and interrupt myself, shaming my own early life self just a little bit, and remind you that if you need some sheet music as your choirs are coming back on campus in some capacity, or if you need sheet music to publish out to your online virtual students from wherever they are around the country or town that you're in, don't forget that graphitepublishing.com is a website that affiliates with this show that is a stable of tons and tons of great choral composers like Tim Takash, Jocelyn Hagan, Eric Barnum, Joshua Shank, just so many more, that you can go and get a PDF and the number of licenses that you need, and you can have it ready to go tomorrow. Plus, it's in that digital format, which is great for your online courses and your hybrid courses. Plus, you can print it out for your singers who are in person tomorrow. It's a great resource. And also there's RyanMain.com, who is a similar online publisher, but he does his own thing. He's an independent publisher. And the cool thing about his website is that when you buy one of his scores, you get that license to that piece, which means you can print as many of them as you want forever. So you own your own license to that piece of Ryan's music there at RyanMain.com. On both of those websites, Graphite and on RyanMain.com, you can enter Choralosophy at checkout to save 10% on your entire purchase. Meaning, so I did this to myself with pull-ups, and it sounds so dumb, but that's the example that's coming to my mind, is that I could never do a pull-up. I was embarrassed that I couldn't do a pull-up because all my friends could do a pull-up, and I knew that I couldn't do a pull-up because I was too heavy. And because I was smart, I started, even as a 9 or 10-year-old, I had started inventing all of these reasons why not only could I not do a pull-up now, but I would never be able to do a pull-up. And it had to do with the proportion of the ratio of my upper body weight to my lower body weight, and blah, blah, blah. And this is why my arms would never be strong enough, even if I worked hard. Right. There would always be a reason why, even if I worked out more, even if I exercised more, I'd still never be able to do a pull-up. So, and that was my defense mechanism for the shame that I felt for not being able to do one. So, and it kind of goes back to my story earlier when I was telling about once I changed my goals related to exercise, where my goal was no longer to look a certain way, my goal was no longer to weigh a certain thing, my goal was to just keep going, right? And all of a sudden, I got to the point where I was at the gym and I had lost enough weight and I had started becoming stronger. There was this day where I just kind of looked at the pull-up bar and I was like, I wonder if I could do one now. And I jumped up and I did it easily because I had been exercising so much at that point. But what was funny is I see the other adult males at the gym that can do pull-ups, and there were probably 2 or 3 years of regular gym going for me where I just didn't try it. Because I still had that, like, it's just not, I don't want to jump up and not be able to do it in front of everybody. But there was one moment where I finally did it. And now, and then of course I was really excited about it. I came home and told Beth, I did a pull-up. She's like, why is that cool? Like, well, I need to go all the way back to 3rd grade to explain to you why that's cool.
Because there's so much history there.
Right, yes. and I could do it. And so then that became part of my exercise routine, and now it's something I do every day like it's nothing.
Right.
And so it's true. It's one of those things where I had built a mythology in my mind around something I could not do. And there were all kinds of valid reasons why I couldn't do it. And I think that there are tons of things that we do to ourselves in that way as musicians as well.
Think about the composer. You're like, oh, I can never do that. I could never do a work that long. I could never do a major work. I could never work with instrumentalists. Whatever your never could be.
Right.
Stop.
Right. I think there's room too for things that you just don't want to do, and that's a slightly different conversation. But if it's something that you do, like if it causes you pain that you're not doing it, then I think it does fall into some kind of a category of adjust possibly what your goals are, and center them around progress. Which I think that's where the marathon metaphor keeps coming back in my mind, because I know that because I'm not a runner, I can picture now, because I've had some exercise success in other ways, where I know that if I were to run a marathon, I'm not going to because I don't want to.
Don't worry, I will not join you in the gym. We're good.
If I were to do it, I understand that it would take me a gradual progress process to get there. It's not something that I could try, fail, and then know enough information to know that I can't do it, because we don't have it. Have you read the Fixed Mindset book?
No, I'm very interested to see who it's by.
So, it just popped into my mind. It's Carol Dweck.
Okay.
Carol Dweck is her name.
Dweck.
She is a psychologist, and she wrote a book called The Fixed Mindset.
So many of our students...
she called it The Growth Mindset, because it's Fixed Mindset versus Growth Mindset. I can't remember which one she named it. We'll look it up after.
We'll go find it.
Yeah. But it's for an education person, for an educator, I think it's a must read, because there's quite a bit of empirical information in it. She spent quite many years in her clinic compiling clinical information in order to write the book. But basically the concept is that a person who has a fixed mindset is someone who believes that whatever qualities are required to do a thing or to learn a thing, they already have them or they don't have them. Like that it's something inherent in where they are right now. It's something I use in my classroom every single day. All my students know growth mindset versus fixed mindset. If they say something in class that is fixed mindset, they will correct each other.
And what a great life skill.
Well, it's important. So, like for example, I had we have freshmen. We do have in-person students. They're there twice a week, which when you're learning how to sing, twice a week is a nightmare. It's better than nothing, but there's so many rote kind of physical skills that you do for 2 days and you forget. When you come back, and so freshman girl says, I can't sing high notes. And so I correct her lovingly, which is also hard in a mask, to lovingly correct someone in a mask, because they can't see your facial expression. And they can't see how much love I am radiating at them. All they see is my...
Do you say, like, I am lovingly saying this?
I do. I have started finding myself frequently saying that you're not in trouble. I'm not mad at you. Because I see, like, every time I give them something other than just yay, way to go, all they can see is my, intimidating brow. And so I have to say to them, you can't see, but I'm smiling right now. It's okay. These are normal problems. Like every freshman I've ever had has these problems. It's kind of thing. But with the fixed mindset, so if I say, if a freshman says I can't sing high, then I actually would stop the rehearsal at that point. Like I don't let those words be spoken in my rehearsal, and I will tell them about fixed mindset, growth mindset, and then we'll talk about how could she have said that in a growth mindset way, the same exact problem, and then we'll come up with something along the lines of, I haven't figured out how to sing high notes yet.
Yes.
At which point I would say, I feel you. Like it's hard. It's really hard. You just haven't figured out how to do it yet. But once you've said, I can't do it, then that's something that you will probably feel tomorrow. It's something you'll feel the next day. So I think with the marathon concept of life being kind of a growth process over a long period of time, I think we have to apply those same concepts to that.
And doesn't that give you kind of almost a sigh of relief? You don't have to know how to do it right now.
Yes, right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you don't even really know how to get, like, you don't have to know how to get to that finish line. You just need to know how to take one step forward.
But Emmy, you don't even have to get to the finish line. Like when we're talking about the life metaphor, that's the thing about growth mindset. Like if you might think you know what the finish line is right now.
But that finish line can move. Just like the example of us all bridging our own pathways right now.
Right.
Everyone's going to have a different finish.
Yep. I think, and that's part of the underlying problem that a lot of people have is that they not only have a fixed mindset in some ways of certain things they can or can't do, but they also have a fixed mindset related to what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. And if your mindset is focused more on just, I'm going to be a better teacher tomorrow, than whatever I was yesterday, or I'm going to be a better, honestly, I mean, that's just like my personal life too. I think about this, I'm going to be a better person tomorrow. Like that, I'm going to be a better dad tomorrow.
One of my favorites is, I just want someone to smile. All I need is a smile. If I can just be something that makes them smile, because you don't know if those singers that you have or those people you're encountering with, the person at the grocery store, you don't know if they've smiled today, but you can share one smile.
Right.
And that can change a whole day.
Yes. Also, which is hard with masks.
Very hard. I feel like I already over smile. Let's be real here. I already over smile. But I feel like I'm smiling so big to make it be seen.
Yeah, because that way it goes in your eyes
I'm
too.
like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, it's important. I think it's important. And we, for example, I'd like to hear some examples if you can come up with them from your own teaching life too, but just things that you couldn't do, like just basic teaching / conducting / musical things that you can imagine, like in front of a choir right now, you could do just no problem.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe at 23 coming out of undergrad, you couldn't have done. What are some things for you?
Okay, so now just behavior management and pacing. There's like 5 million different directions you can go. You don't have to be stressed on, am I going to have enough material to fill this hour and 15-minute class? Well, of course you're going to have enough material. And if it doesn't work, you go this way and that way. It's like I had a good friend say, we all have these little conveyor belts, like the all-you-can-eat sushi where you pull off what you want when it comes around the conveyor belt. We all have those little sushi belts in our brains as teachers. And when you get out of college and you're a first-time teacher or in this first-year teacher-esque year, the choices are limited. Right. And so you either have to wait for it to come back around or you only have 1 or 2 flavor options. Yeah. And as you keep learning how to roll sushi, how to make the sushi, whatever, like make the sausage, you have more choices on that conveyor belt. So a big thing I think was my first job was in middle school. It was a kind of scary area of town that I loved, and building rapport and figuring out how to teach and how to write lesson plans and what music to pick and make sure there were no fights in my classroom was my number one priority. But then I'm like, oh, do I have enough stuff that they're going to want to do for an hour and 15 minutes? Right. That was a big thing. And now, too, you think about all the times you just push play on the podcast. I remember the nerves of walking in those first days, even at late 20 teaching. Even at the first year at college, are they going to respect me? Will they appreciate how I bring the materials to them? Will they want to learn in this fashion? That first music appreciation class I taught with 157 people in it, I'd never been nervous to talk in front of people until they were all looking at me. And I'm like, oh my God, they're taking notes. What am I going to say? Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I share those same kind of memories of just being a young teacher and spending more of my mental energy worried about what I was going to say, what I was going to do, how my hands were going to move.
Oh, I never worried about that. I have to
that
confess.
Kind of stuff.
I have to confess. I got my doctorate because I was worried about how ugly my hands were.
What?
I literally hated to watch myself conduct. Typical elementary school music teacher. Right. Huge. And that is not a dig. You need their attention.
No, get it.
But I was huge and I didn't know how to hold still and my knees would bounce. And Dr. Thomas told me I wasn't allowed to conduct in high heels until I figured out how to get grounded to the floor so I couldn't fly off the ground. Like, I really had not beautiful hands. So one of the reasons I chose a doctorate in choral conducting was to force myself to make pretty hands. I still don't really think much about it. I do practice really hard transitions and stuff occasionally. But even that's grown just in getting that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, this is a true story. My very first conducting class as an undergrad, we had to do some work with baton and without baton.
Okay.
And I was so nervous. Like, I tell my students this story now, and they just are in disbelief because they can't picture me being nervous. But
That's a great example.
Yeah, like, I was so nervous. My hands were sweating. Like, sometimes if you're high anxiety in a moment and you've got that sweaty palm syndrome or whatever, and you also don't feel like you can quite firmly grip a thing. And I had the baton and I didn't feel like I could firmly grip it, so I kept like squeezing it. And I get up to give a cue in front of a live choir in a conducting class, and I give a downbeat, and the baton flew across the room spinning and hit a soprano in the forehead.
I'm sorry for laughing.
No,
So
it was awful, and it was mortifying, and it was not a soprano that I knew well enough for it to be cool. Like, I threw I threw a dart at her head, basically. Now, thank God, the impact end was the blunt end, so it ended up hitting her. But if it was the pointy end, it could have embedded.
I'm sorry for laughing at you. But that's everyone's worst nightmare, dropping the baton. That's everyone's worst nightmare.
Yeah, but I didn't drop the baton. I turned the baton into a projectile on a downbeat at the beginning of the rehearsal, and so it was downhill from there. And so I actually, I still don't use a baton in almost any scenario now, partly because of that.
Are you fixing your mindset on that?
Well, no, I just don't, but no, that's not why.
Okay.
I no longer have shaky hands when I have a baton. I just don't enjoy it. I don't like it for musical reasons. But no, it was, but I had tons of anxiety around just being in front of a choir. I'm trying to think of two other examples. Like, when I first started conducting choirs, we always talk about our as choir directors, the quality of our ears. Like, what can we hear, right? And some directors have better ones than others, and that's true. And that was always something that I wanted to have the ability to just hear all the things. But when I was first teaching and I first directing choirs, I was so much of my mental energy was spent in what I was doing that I couldn't hear them. Right? And so I remember my very first high school choir, probably would have been 50 or 60 kids, and I could tell that it was generally sucky. Like, I could hear that it wasn't in tune, but I couldn't tell, why. Like, I couldn't, like, I was so focused on what I was doing that I couldn't tell. Whereas now, 18 years down the road, I can give a downbeat and know exactly which tenor in which corner of the room, even with masks on, doesn't have his soft palate here or doesn't have his jaw here or whatever, and I can hear, just gigantic amounts of things happening in the room because my own internal self is slowed down to the point where I'm no longer worried about it. And I think about that as like a progress that happened over many, many years. And so earlier we were talking about comparing ourselves to people.
Right.
I could compare, if I had compared 24-year-old me to 40-year-old me, then my concept of me would have been very poor. I call it Instagram syndrome.
Oh, yeah. I totally believe in that. The comparison problem.
Yeah. Well, but it's not even that, though. It's because that's a surface. The comparing ourselves to each other is a very natural human thing, and we will never be able to stop doing it. But the Instagram phenomenon, as I call it, is that what we tend to do, especially lately because of social media, and it's getting worse because of that, is that we compare the worst of ourselves
to the best of what's on social.
Of other people. And it's through, the choir directors do it to ourselves too. Like, if I post a video of my high school choir at their final concert of the year after me kicking their butt for 9 months and they sound great, and somebody else hears that, and they're immediately going to go to what their kids sounded like in that rehearsal that was really bad today, or whatever. because in that recording from my kids at their finished product, you don't get to hear all the days they sucked.
No, no, and you don't know anyone else's step to the progress. Like that's
Right.
one of the first things we do in Mile 1, introduce ourselves as pacers, and then, hey, tell us about what you did to train. There was a little posse of 17 and 18-year-old guys that were just cutting up in the back of our group. And I'm like, hey, cross-country dudes, what'd you do to train? Because I could call them out. They were totally cross-country dudes. And they talked about nothing. Like, oh, we ran like 12 or 13 miles once. Okay, cool. Well, make sure that you're getting a lot of water and some nutrition. And if you start to fall off at 15, that's okay. You'll still finish.
Right.
It's going to be painful. Be ready.
Yeah.
Just giving them some, because you don't know what every person at that start line went through.
Yeah.
Or I'm sure your 24-year-old self versus your 40-year-old self, if you were doing your first marathon versus your 40th, the finish line jitters are still a thing. But you know how to slow down and enjoy that feeling.
Right.
You know how to start a race and not go out too fast. How to pace did you ever do one of those lessons where you got all the way to the end and you had no idea what you were going to do for the last
In my
10
early
minutes?
Years, yes.
Yes, those were always the scariest.
Yeah.
And if you weren't engaging them, there was going to be a fight. So you had to make sure you were doing something. I called that the dog and pony show. Man, it was crazy.
Yeah, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of my bigger pet peeves when in watching other directors work sometimes that maybe haven't kind of gone through all of these processes. Also not a dig, but is getting into a rehearsal and getting to and you've still got time left with the kids, and you can't think of anything else to do. I don't understand that.
Right.
I don't understand that. That's something that I guess occasionally would happen in my younger years, but even then, it's like that's a mindset problem. That's not a teacher skill problem. That's a mindset problem. Is if you can't, so in other words, maybe the kids have gotten through the rehearsal plan that you thought that they should do that day. They're singing the right notes and rhythms, and they crescendoed at that place you want them to crescendo. Well, I guess we've done everything. No, you haven't. That's a mindset problem. There is no moment as a musician where you should be thinking you're done. In my opinion, and that's kind of why too. Like this marathon metaphor is appealing in my mind too, because I think of it. I've used the metaphor of, this will be super nerdy, and I probably will lose you with this, but role-playing video games.
Okay, I remember video games.
But do you know what role-playing video games are?
No, I mean,
RPGs.
I had a Super Nintendo.
You don't know what I'm talking about then. So an RPG in video games is the type of video game where you start at the beginning of the game with a character who has maybe level 1. Okay, and it's not like set levels where you finish a level and you pass that level and you go to the next level. It's your character himself has levels, and your character can level up, and each time he levels up or she levels up, they get new abilities. They get maybe characteristics that give them better gameplay than you had before. And with the good ones, the really good RPG video games, which I no longer play because I'm a dad and I don't have time. But when I was I played them all the way up into my late 20s before Clara was running around more than I had time to play games. But so you keep leveling up, and with the really good ones, you can level up basically forever. So no matter what your attributes are, you can always get
better
one. And so then when you go into the game environment, you're a god basically at that point. You can just do whatever. And so I've always thought of, in a super nerdy way, back to my younger gamer days, where choral music in the way I think of myself as a musician is, I can't imagine a moment where I would say, okay, I have now learned enough.
Right. You're always leveling up.
Right. You can level up, and I try to put that off to the singers too. Is like, after a concert, I don't know if you've ever done this with your choirs, but after a concert, we sit down and we analyze the video. What could we have done better if we could perform that piece again? And it's not like a defeating way. You don't do it because you want to pick yourself apart so you have no joy. It's just that it's a growth mindset.
Right.
Like, if we could do that again, what would we want back? Like, what could we do? Which moment in the music did we not quite agree on, or whatever? So I'm gonna force you to answer this question again. Give me some music things, like some things that you feel like as a musician you couldn't do before, and it may be like my pull-up story, like that caused you some pain that you couldn't do. You'd compared Instagram yourself to someone.
Oh, yes.
But now you feel like you're better at that thing. You've got to have it. We all do.
I do, yeah, definitely. Yeah. You want a teaching trait, or do you want an actual musical
musicianship thing?
A musicianship thing. So Bach, there's a duet from, I'm not going to remember the number now because I don't have numbers.
Yeah.
And I heard it performed at an ACDA convention, and I loved it. But I didn't know how to teach my students that type of articulation, and I wasn't sure how you got them to sound so appropriate on German text. And so I always wanted to do it, but just never programmed it because I didn't know how at all. And then I don't remember what the catalyst was for doing it, but all of a sudden I pulled it out. I'm like, we're just going to do it. We're going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. I called friends. I asked questions. I checked out a lot of books from the library because it was my first year in grad school, so I now had a library at my fingertips. And I didn't tell anyone at school that I was working on this piece with my community choir. And we get to the point where it's time to now articulate. And I'm like, okay, I've got it. I just have to teach it. They've been tutoing and doing and all the little thingies that the book said to try.
Scooby-Doo and
Shaggy-Doo and Dooby-Dooing. And so we put it together, and the first time was still so awful. But then we started adding some kinesthetic stuff, and I got their input. I want it to sound like this. What can we do to make it sound like that?
Yeah.
And they started adding movement, and it became a dance, and it, in the end, was an absolute blast. But I put that off for 8 years, 9 years. I wanted to do that piece for so long. The same is true, though, for me in major works. I always thought I was not someone who could hold still long enough to do a major work. So I forced myself to do an entire recital for my doctorate. I did Pergolesi's Stabat Mater. And I hired musicians, and I intentionally hired a freshman. So I'd have to learn how to communicate with a beginner style instrumentalist, and then a couple grad students and someone in the middle. So I had to learn how to verbalize exactly what I wanted. Man, I've never sweat so much ever in a rehearsal. That was so scary. Totally worth it.
Yeah.
And overcame it at the end. Was it the most beautiful product ever? No.
Right.
But I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what I mean. We have these roadblocks in our mind of the things that we can't do. And no one listening to this should also be ashamed that they have those. Like that, we all do.
Still do.
Yeah, still do. And I think what I've started to do is I've started to have part of my daily, truly daily practice being kind of trying to counteract that in myself by knowing that I have it, I have the problem, and just reminding myself. It sounds so hokey. It's like Tony Robbins or whatever, but by just kind of verbalizing.
His voice is so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is totally. But trying to verbalize to myself in my inner monologue, inner dialogue, I guess you could say, just reminding myself that it's okay to have those things. Because I also have to remind myself that it's by accepting those things about myself that I'm not, my insecurities, whatever, that actually help me overcome them. And I think that's the paradox for a lot of people. It's like, if I acknowledge my insecurities, then I'm making them real.
Yeah, so you can get over them.
Right. Well, yeah. But that's the thing, is if you don't acknowledge them, you won't get over them.
No, they'll stay. Marathon, hello. So you have an injury. You have an imbalance. If you keep it in the closet, you're just going to get injured.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. Well, none of the good runners do that. If you want to actually get better, get faster, do whatever it is you want to do, you have to acknowledge, okay, this is what my problem is, and this is how I fix it. And even if you don't know how to fix it, that's what my problem is, and I'm going to just try.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a weightlifting problem once where I saw somebody most of the people I work out with, I don't really personally know. I just happen to be there at the same time as them every day.
You don't actually talk to them?
No, that's not a bro. That's bro code violation.
This is like reason number 622 million. Well, I should not go to the gym. I'd be like, cool, what are you you train him for? What's this move you're doing? They would hate me. I'd be kicked out.
No, that's funny. I occasionally words will be exchanged at the gym, but for the most part, we just grunt.
Are you using this?
Right, exactly. Yes, will you spot me? That kind of thing. But there was this moment where I think it was probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago or so, where I saw somebody that I normally had been, working out with who started lifting more than I was lifting on a thing, and I decided I'm just going to see if I can also do that. But it was beyond where I was, and so I was able to do it. But there's these issues with weightlifting where like you can physically get the weight up, but it's beyond your ability for where your body is, and so you might have to break your form down to do it, and that can injure you. So let's just thinking in as simple as a bench press, if let's say I go up 20 pounds more than I should, I might still be able to wrench my body and get the weight up, but then I've got to twist my shoulder into an unnatural position to force it up. And I had started doing that just because I had that Instagram problem. Like I was like, I should be keeping up with this guy. And I did that for 3 or 4 weeks, and I was lifting with bad form due to the weight that I wanted to be able to lift. And it caused like a rotator cuff kind of pull injury where I had to just stop doing the lift for like months to heal. And then where do I end up?
Way back
I end
down
up
at the bottom.
way back below where I was before, and then I've got to start over, and I've got to heal, and then I've got to build my strength back up. And of course, the metaphor there should be obvious, which is that sometimes we bite off more than we can chew. Which then kind of builds more insecurity because then we've got to go back to the basics and all those types of things. I can think of
fine line.
Yeah.
But it's still you got back and you're doing it again.
Right.
Like you can pick up whatever that scary musical teacher thing is, and you might do it wrong, and it might be really hideous. But that doesn't mean you don't come back to it or you come back and revisit it.
Right. You develop but that's the thing is it's okay to, so in that case I took a risk and I shouldn't have taken that risk in hindsight. But at the same time, I don't want to tell myself that risk taking is bad. And so it's a mindset thing. Like if you become comfortable with failure, then the failure itself stops being as scary of a concept or a prospect. And now I don't know, how are your keyboard skills?
Oh, I practice a lot. They're not amazing, so I practice a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I took piano a lot, and I tested out of all the piano classes that were required, and I can accompany myself. But that doesn't mean it's artistic or beautiful or something my singer should sing
Okay,
to.
sounds like you and I are about in the same place then. So I can get us through a song if our accompanist is not there, or I can get my voice students through their song in a lesson, but I wouldn't do it in public. Like I'm not going to play at the concert.
Yeah, no.
Stuff like that. But at the same time, because I've finally, I've accepted the fact that I'm not a piano player, but at the same time I have held myself to a standard of I do still want to get better at it. Like I'm still going to work at it. I want to be more proficient for my students when I need to use it, that kind of thing. But it's through that mindset that I can now get in front of the class and sit down at the piano and try to play something and have it be awful and make tons of mistakes, but it doesn't stress me out.
Right, there's no stress.
Right, it's just like the kids know, like, hey guys, I suck at piano, and I'm just going to try this. And then they laugh, and then I laugh, and then we play. And by learning to sight read as a singer too is that way. Like you can't, there's a threshold between too much, like not enough anxiety, which means that you don't care, to like too much anxiety, which means you're paralyzed.
Right.
And it's a mindset thing.
And there's a fine line again. I think that's such a great thing too, though, because especially as you're looking, what's the finish line going to look like for this fall?
Right.
We're still reevaluating it. We were going to do the whole virtual concert thing like we did in the spring, and the singers are just not getting the joy out of singing by themselves into a microphone or into a screen.
Right.
There's no reward for them right now. So we're kind of reevaluating it, but it's so much like when they have to sing by themselves sight reading. How much can I push them to be like, okay, but I know it's uncomfortable, still do it.
Right.
And how much can I say, oh, I see, this is burnout. Where's that line? And where's the line of the weight? How many miles is too many miles?
Right.
I think the fun part of the fitness analogies is it just gives us a second to realize that you can do other things than choir.
Yes.
You should.
Please do.
You should.
Please do.
You
Yeah.
should. You can do other things than choir, but they can also make you a better person in that classroom.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for marathoning. I think I'm the teacher I am today because I can do hard things. They're not easy. There were miles today, even as the pace leader, that I didn't want to finish. But that didn't mean I didn't keep showing up.
Right.
There was one really fun little phrase the girl I co-pace with, she kept saying, I can handle it as your catchphrase. Grab that catchphrase, run for 2 minutes, and I bet you've handled whatever it was that you needed to handle.
Yeah.
You can handle it.
Right.
You can do hard things. You can fail and get back up and try again. How many times did Ford fail on the car? Wasn't it like an absurd
lots of times,
amount
but
of times?
every good inventor fails
Right?
a bunch of times.
I mean, podcasting. How many times have you had an episode that you were like,
Lots.
right? But we still keep showing up.
Right.
Oh my gosh, sound quality engineering. That I'm loving. But man, sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't do a good job with that one.
Oh yeah, I've had some episodes, especially in fact, I was going to kind of have us finish with, you mentioned like do other things other than choir. And I was going to use the example of podcasting.
Yes.
It's like, yes, we both do a podcast about choir, but it's still forcing us to develop skills that we didn't train for.
No.
We're not broadcast journalist majors or whatever, and we weren't trained in audio engineering and like all the different things that you have to kind of dig your heels in a little bit or dip your toe in, I guess, a better analogy.
I don't know. I think
podcast.
I'm digging my
You're
heels
digging
in
your heels
for this
in,
YouTube thing you keep talking about.
Right. And it's true. And so, like you mentioned podcast episodes that you feel like once they've been put out there and maybe they weren't what you thought they were going to be, or maybe you think they're going to be great and the audience just doesn't care. And then, I remember the very first time I had an episode that at the time in my show's development, it was my first episode that blew up, like just crazy amounts of downloads and traffic. And it was not an episode I expected to. And there would be, in fact, so it's really interesting. I'll just tell the story since it's been well over a year now. But my episode 18, which was just me by myself talking about how I teach sight reading, at that point was like by far my most downloaded episode. Even though I had just had Jason Ferdinand on for the first time and all these kind of stuff, and that was really confusing to me as a content creator at the time. I thought that what people would care about on my show was me talking to these really smart people, which they do, and they did. In fact, that episode with Jason Ferdinand, later on, lots of people went back and listened to it. But at the time, just me sitting there talking about sight reading, and I expected that episode to be just kind of a filler. Right, like just something to put out something. And it started causing me to have to reflect on what it is that audiences want and what it is that audiences don't, and having to start also then thinking about how much do I care? In other words, where's going to be my line as a host? Where's going to be my line between putting out content that means something to me and being somebody who just does what I know that other people want to hear?
Right.
And for me, I've decided that it's going to need to be a mix.
It is. It's a mix. Very much a mix.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what we do every day. How much of this, whatever the scary thing is that you're envisioning, whatever your marathon is, how much of this is for you personally, and how much is it because you think you have to do that because everybody else does?
Right.
That's where you really need to evaluate. And what a great time we have on our hands right now to do that type of self-evaluation. Yes. Virtual learning, if you're doing, man, I feel like I'm behind a computer screen.
It's hard.
24/7.
Yeah.
And I'm so burned out by Fridays, and I just don't do any screen time, which I'm really thankful this is an in-person interview, because I would have not scheduled it on a Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
Because I try not to get behind a screen.
Yeah.
Because I need that, it's too much fatigue.
Yeah.
But it allows time to think, okay, what can I do better this week? What should I be doing? And am I doing that because it's what my singers need and what I need to grow personally? Or is it because I've seen other people doing it?
Right.
And that's an important question.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's hard. I think it goes. I mean, this could just stem into an entire other podcast, to be honest, of what types of things as humans do we, where do we get our motivation from, and where do we In other words, where do we really get it from versus where do we tell ourselves we're getting it from?
Right. That
which are
becomes
not
the
always the same.
conversation between what's the difference between discipline, motivation, and success. Because they are all kind of tied together. You really can't have any of them without the other.
Right.
But when does a habit become something that you're doing habitually?
Yeah.
How much does discipline play into that habit building? How much does motivation play into that habit building? How much is the success of finally making it a habit? There's so many. We should have an episode where we talk about all our favorite non-musical books. I feel like there would be a lot of them because even as you've talked, I'm like, oop, that's this book. Oop, that's this book.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually I've started doing more non-music episodes of late, and that's partly why is because you can't separate what we do for a living from the rest of the world.
No, which is why it's such the
part of
coolest
it.
profession.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we see a microcosm of society in our rehearsals every time. Every time they come in, we have like a sample size of what is really out there. We've got in all of our choirs, we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have people that don't care about politics at all. We have black people, white people, Hispanic people. We have everything. We have a, well, I think microcosm. That's really what it is. It's the world in our rehearsals. And so for a show like this, I really do feel like it needs to be an exploration of the world, which it's one of the things I want to have you talk about a little bit is this idea of why do we do a thing? What makes us want to do a thing? And I want you to talk about your show, like what made you want to do it, and then has that evolved over the time you've now done it? In other words, is the reason you thought you were doing it still the reason you're still doing it?
That's a great question. So I've always listened to podcasts, and I've listened to yours from the beginning, and I've listened to Beth's from the beginning, and I'm really big into runner podcasts. I can tell you every marathoner every female marathoner in America, like what their training plan is, what their PR is, what they're training for now, how likely they are to get X amount of like whatever time. Like it's a little bit nerdy. Like
that's peak nerd.
Oh, it's super nerd. Like I'm sorry I'm admitting this in public, but it's truth. So I listen to a lot of runner podcasts just to get my mind out of the loop of music. And I found how much I just enjoyed the medium.
Right.
So I had joked with my husband back in 2018 that I was going to start a podcast. He's like, "You're in grad school. No. We can discuss this when you finish." So I graduated in December of 19, and I literally moved home the next week and said, "So can I start my podcast now?" And he's like, "Just move home," because I had lived someplace else for a couple years. "Just move home, get established, we'll talk about it." And then we come back from the Mobile ACDA Southern Region Conference, and he's like, "What are you most excited for during this COVID?" I said, "I'd really like to start my podcast now."
Right.
He's like, oh, it's still a thing? I'm like, it hasn't not been a thing. I've always wanted, I feel like this is what needs to happen. And so he asked me the hard questions. What would it be about? And I had just finished researching for a committee all of the podcasts about choir and like choir education.
Music Eddie kind of things.
Music, not elementary, because there's a ton of those out there and they're so good.
Yeah.
That's just I was doing this for ACDA and based it off of an old list from Chorus America's website.
Okay.
Just which ones have existed, which ones have gone away, which ones have changed mediums, changed formats, etc. And then I reached out to all the hosts and said, "Hey, I've created this document. Will you let me know if you want to change anything?" And then I found out where in that I could find my own niche. So I felt like you and Beth and a couple other people really covered other things well, which is great because that's not my thing. And I really wanted a place where my student teachers especially could continue their education. Because when you put student teachers out into the world, you have no idea. I want to still help. So that was kind of my initial thought. And I love listening to podcasts in the car because in a really great book, Not About Music, it is said that if you listen to educational materials every time you get in the car, that it's equivalent to a semester of schooling.
Oh, absolutely. I've never read that, but that makes total sense. Yep.
So my thought was I can make a podcast. My attention span is typically 30 to 45 minutes. As you see, I'm starting to get itsy. It's not because I'm not attentive. It's just I need to move soon. My muscles are getting a little bit tight as we are sitting here. So I knew what time frame I wanted, that I wanted to be someone's car companion or running buddy, and that I wanted to talk about issues that would help people be better music educators.
Right.
So
Yeah.
It kind of has stayed that way. I have 4 different types of episodes. They've morphed a little bit. There's what initially was just the interview. Then there's the Doctor is In, which is me answering questions, which this one coming up in a week is pretty hilarious. It's about popular music and the decades. I don't know how we got on that topic. And then there's teaching tips from different people, and then repertoire exploration episodes. And I was the most excited about repertoire exploration episodes, and they have been so fun to pair up with different composers or repertoire experts, but those weren't getting hardly any listens during all of the uncertainty, and they kind of took a back burner.
Yeah.
They're coming back now. I have quite a few cool ones in the pipeline. But the big change has been the interview is kind of more often than I anticipated.
Right.
The Doctor is In actually gets listens, which I never thought they would. You told me they would get listens, and I didn't believe you. People actually listen to them.
Yeah.
Which is super humbling.
Right.
But,
yeah.
I mean, it hasn't changed too much. It's gotten longer. I can handle, like, legit 45 minutes.
Wow.
I know.
Well, this show, I guess, is the Joe Rogan of choir podcasts, because I don't have a time limit.
You're really good at it, though. You keep the conversation going, and I just become too ADD, and I forget what has been said.
Well, yeah, I think it just depends on the topic for me. I'll keep talking until there just doesn't seem to be, until I feel like we're at the bottom. Like if we've drilled to the bottom of the onion, then the episode's over. Okay. If that makes sense. And of course, somebody else could say that there's always going to be one layer further than that, but at least whatever's coming to my mind. But yeah, this show was started because of, my initial motivation was not professional development related at all. It was, I feel like choir directors are really bad at talking to each other online. And I'm embarrassed to get on Facebook groups and just see the way people treat each other. And I know enough about the way social media works from its mechanisms to try to basically amplify anger. That's what social media is. And so this show was started as just another place for choir teachers to talk. That even if someone comes on the show and disagrees with me about a topic, it's not going to lead to cussing, and it's not going to lead to name calling. It's just going to lead to productive conversation.
Right.
And since the show has been going for a year and a half, it's morphed into more professional development stuff, because I've seen that there's a benefit there, and that helps people.
They need it.
But initially, it was just like, can we stop? Can we stop? Can we just talk? Like, and so, but I think that's the way you said this, and we'll wrap this up so you can start moving your legs.
You might not be able to stand up very quickly, just being honest.
But yeah, I think that what's cool about the having your show and Beth's show and my show and all the others out there, that we all definitely do kind of approach the conversations in a different way and approach content in a different way. And I think, of course, podcasts, just as you and I both are nerds about podcasts in general, partly probably because you get all this enrichment, but you also get it on demand, and it's there when you need it. Somebody could go to you don't have to listen chronologically. Someone could go to one of your episodes that are recent because of the topic, and then they could go back to one of your first episodes because that covered a topic that they're interested in, and they could skip all the ones in between.
Right. You don't have to listen in order. Right. I like it because it feels like we're friends. So I still listen to all of the podcasts. I don't listen to my own. That's very challenging. Do you listen to your own?
I do. I listen. Well, so because this is the secret.
Really?
Yes. Okay. So
I listen to it so many times before it goes live that I feel like I can't listen anymore.
See, okay. So this is a secret that I will tell you, and apparently everyone who's listening to this episode. But very few people get all the way to the end of one of my long
I know
episodes.
we get that statistic.
Right. And so no one will hear this. It'll be great. So I listen to mine immediately after I publish it. And I usually in the car in the morning, and I finish it at the gym in the afternoon. And I'll listen to it once all the way through because, yes, I did sit and I edited it. And so I know what's in it already. But I have this fear that I will probably say something that gets me canceled. And so if just because I touch controversial things in my show, and I'm not nervous about it, I'm not scared about it, but I always want to make sure that everything I said came across the way I meant it to come across. And that way, if I just published an episode, it's not too late for me to just go pull it down real quick, edit something, and then put it back up. But I've never had to do that. So not one time, but I do listen back because we touch sensitive things on this show that that somebody might not agree with the way I framed something or that the guest framed something, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not worried about somebody disagreeing with me. They're welcome to write in and we can talk, and sometimes it might even lead to an episode. We can talk about that. But I always want to make sure that even if I say something that at least did it come across the way I intended it to, because I can defend that.
Right.
If somebody is bummed out by something I said, if it was really truly what I intended, then I will defend that. But if it was just a slip of the tongue, or like I said something that didn't come out right, or whatever, because I don't script the show at all.
Right.
Like, I don't script it at all. Like, I
You
usually
can't,
yeah.
though. I
Right.
tried that for the first couple episodes. I tried scripting, and it doesn't work because that's not the point of these.
No, they're conversations.
They are conversations, which is why my extroverted self loves them, because I feel like I have friends in my ears.
Right. And I do have to tell guests that usually, because sometimes they expect to be interviewed. And sometimes it turns out that way, and it's fine. But like, I tell them that, like, this is not an interview show. It's a conversation show. Like, we're going to talk about this thing. And sometimes I might say things, and then sometimes you might. And you can ask me questions. That's totally okay. You know, I have to kind of feed them that so that we are sitting down on a Zoom meeting to talk about a thing.
Yes.
And then just let people be a fly on the wall, which of course is what people will do with this conversation. And then what you don't get to do, listeners, is you don't get to be a fly on the wall for the rest of the evening when we go downstairs and hang out and make dinner.
Yes, I'm so excited to spend time with you in person. Thanks for having me back on the show. That means a lot.
So thanks as always for sticking around to the end of the conversation. Of course, we could have kept going for quite a while, but we had family downstairs and dinner to prepare, and we had to cut that short. But thank you for sticking around to listen to the end. I always appreciate it for those of you who are listening to these tail ends of the episodes, because that means you're the diehards and you are the thinkers, you are the in-depth listeners, and I appreciate you. So if you are still here, one of the things that you can do to help to show that you really enjoy this show, and also to recognize that I need some help spreading the word about this show. It's the most expensive thing that I'm doing right now. Now that I've already had to buy all my equipment, I think I'm okay now. I think I've got the gear that I need. My most expensive thing going forward is just stupid Facebook ads. It's getting more and more expensive by the week. Now I own some Facebook stock, and that part's great. But they're bleeding me dry. So share the episodes. Thank you very much when you do that. It's a huge deal. It's like almost like a exponential rate of growth for people seeing the episode for free, without me having to pay for it. When you share it, when you say, hey, I really like this podcast, this was a great episode, that's probably the biggest thing right now that you can do to help. Also, of course, like, comment, any type of interaction you do with the episodes helps a lot. Head over to patreon.com/Choralosophy. Jump on and support over there if you appreciate the work that goes into this show and you want to be a part of that. Of course, also you can leave a rating on the podcast apps, join the Choralosophers Facebook group, and of course, get signed up to join me down in Atlanta, April 9 through 11. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much.